Good evening, everybody. My name's Nick Sullivan, and I'm Commercial Manager at the National Pharmacy Association. And I'd like to welcome you to tonight's webinar, which is the Data-Driven Pharmacy. We are joined this evening by Nick Kay, Chair of the MPA, Ashley Cohen, Board Member for the North of England, and Adele Curran, who is Chief Operations Officer at RWA Pharmacy. And tonight we hope to be able to give you some insight into how to harness the data that's available to you to make the biggest opportunities to your business. Our agenda is initially we'll meet the panel, so we've done that part already. But Nick and Ashley are going to talk about what data is available to you and how you can use that. Adele is kindly going to step in then and talk about a local market insight report that's part of your MPA membership, and we will talk more about that around that, and Adele will go into details about it. And one of the last sessions is around introduction of a new solution that we've been working in partnership with RWA Pharmacy over the last year to bring that solution to you. So without further ado, I'll stop sharing and I'll hand over to Nick and Ashley.
Thanks very much. Good evening. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. So I think Ashley and I just wanted to give a brief insight into how we kind of use data. And I must admit, actually, and almost embarrassingly so, I'm quite a novice and a newbie to this data and some of the stuff that we've been able to have access to currently on the MPA trial. And it's been transformative for our business, concentrating on some of the things that we have just been able to focus our business on. For example, we've had a look around sort of NMS numbers and some of the things around prescription charges within our business. But I know, Ashley, you've been using this data for quite a long time. But we were talking just before, and something you said resonates with me. Actually, as a newbie in this space, actually some of the data can be quite overwhelming. So it'd be really interesting to hear a little bit more about how you, as somebody more experienced with the data, uses it, drives it, and gets the best out of it. I know when we've spoken before at board, your use of this is really fascinating. So
great, thank you, thanks, Nick, and welcome. Good evening, everyone. For me, I wanted to get across that I'm a board member, but I'm also a contractor, and I'm also a business owner. And I think some of these, whether you're a contractor or a business owner, you need to know how your business operates. And for me, data is key to running our businesses. I think we need to know and understand the data that is available. Without accurate information, accurate and timed information on your key metrics. And these key metrics can be anything that is defined by yourselves. So I think what we'll see later on by Adele is a suite of information, but you can define what's important to you. You cannot make business decisions, whether it's operational or financial, without accurate and timely information. I wanted to kind of almost start by saying that PMRs historically used to be prescription labeling machines. We used to use them all, and we had this wonderful information, but we used to use them purely to label prescriptions. However, the data that PMR machines now have and create can help us in terms of workflow, revenue opportunities, inefficient dispensing, lost income, and it's incredible. And we need to tap into that. So whether you are a single contractor that's working in your pharmacy full time, whether you have a number of pharmacies like myself, and you want to compare how branches perform, having accurate and timely information available to you is really important. And Nick just touched on it there. I think what you'll see tonight is a wealth of information that might sometimes seem a little bit overwhelming in terms of do I know what my business is about? And I think it's important to target and look at specifically information that's particularly important to us all. And we focused, when we originally did it, on income. Not surprisingly, we were fully aware that with the last few years, income was being squeezed out of dispensing and put into extra services, whether it was the old-fashioned MURs as they were, but now NMS and DMS. And I looked at our very small pharmacy branch, just to give you an example, and it hit me quite hard that we could do across our group about 450 NMSs a month across our small group. And we were touching a small fraction of that. So I wanted to look at the numbers specifically across each branch and make sure that we're maximising our income, which if you did all of those NMS contributes to about £12,500 a month, 150 grand a year. So it's significant. So we went from probably about 10 or 15% of our capacity up to now 100%. And it's fair to say within the last 12 months, we are hitting 100% of our NMS numbers because we are looking at it. And we're also wrapping our services around that. So once you look at the potential, you can change and define some of the services around that. We might want to talk about that a little bit later on in terms of how we've managed to do that. So once we've got the big numbers in, we're now looking at other opportunities like prescriptions that are due to expire, paid prescriptions, and looking at all else. But I think it's really important for you all to be able to see those missed opportunities, because I think as pharmacists, it's so important. Number one is that we claim for the work that we're doing. And there's plenty of opportunities. And I think Adele will have examples of work that pharmacies are doing that are not being claimed for. And secondly, are we claiming it all correctly? Are we maximising the income that we can be doing as well? So it's not about just not claiming, but it's claiming correctly. So I am always blown away when I see Adele present, because it makes me feel really inferior, even for somebody that feels like they're on top of the numbers. I leave the presentation thinking, another thing to have a look at. So I hope you all get out something and take away 2 or 3 nuggets of information that you did differently tonight that will make your business more profitable.
That's great. Thanks very much, Ashley. And again, I think learning about those things is going to be really important. I think now we're going to hear from Adele and some of those the things that are available now. So Adele, over to you. Thanks.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, so I suppose the first thing that I wanted to go through and have a look at with you guys is the report that's now available within your membership. And it will be starting to be sent to you from the beginning of next month. So some of you guys already get a dashboard from us, and that basically just gives a summary. Some of you guys had signed up for a larger report, but now we've kind of combined the two of them. We've enhanced and put more information into these reports, and they will come free as part of your membership from next month. I'm going to review the English version with you and just show you what's in it. If there's any queries or questions or anything, feel free to drop everything into the chat and we can have a look at it afterwards. So without further ado, I'll stop talking and start sharing. Well, I'll talk and share at the same time, which is fairly usual for me. Okay, so here we are. Okay. So this is our what we call a My Pharmacy Insight, and the basis of the Pharmacy Insight is that it's based on the public data information set. We look at it, we consolidate it, we regionalize it, we monetize it, and then we present it back to you guys to be able to see effectively what's going on in your local areas. Okay, so this one. I'm using Boots as an example here. I've got 2 versions here. One where your pharmacy is just one branch, one independent. And then we've got the second one where your branch is actually part of a group. So we're comparing your individual pharmacies within your group to the group total, then to the local area average, then to the industry average. So I'll concentrate on this first. It's about 8 pages long. As you can see, I'm going to go back and go through each part of this and make it a little bit bigger so you can have a see of it and see what is available to you guys now. Let me just increase this up. Guys, is that okay in size-wise, do we think? I'll go for yes. Okay, so the top part of it is looking at the number of items that you claimed or were paid for in the last paid month. So we're looking at November items. This will be quite familiar to everybody because it's very similar to the one that you're getting now. What we've added in here is a monetary value to what those items look like. So we're looking at an average item value across the industry times the number of items that you got paid for in that month to give you a total value. Now that won't match back exactly to your PPD, but that will give you an average value for your reimbursement based on what the items you dispensed. We've got your year-on-year growth. You've got your local area growth. So your local area is anything within a 5-mile radius of your pharmacy. So we look at the top 10 pharmacies closest to you within that 5-mile radius, and then obviously compare it to the industry. Next piece down is around the nominations. So the nominations is effectively a live piece of data. So that comes in every week. So this is the latest week's nominations. These are the ones that came out on Monday. So my branch has got 7,638 nominations. So then we're comparing it to the latest 3 months growth, because when we're looking back, we're looking at November here. So I'm up 0.9% in my nominations in the last 3 months. The area is only up 0.6, the industry is up 0.4. I'm ahead of the average, which is great. Then we're breaking it down even further, and we're looking at your surgeries. So we're looking effectively at the overall surgeries in the industry. So the November surgeries are up 1.4%. This is the prescribing from the surgeries. Latest 6-month growth, 12-month growth. So then I look at my practice. So this is my top practice for this Boots branch. They do 16% electronic repeat. They were down 4.6% in November, 6 months growth, 12-month growth. And then we look at the other top 5 to see what that growth looks like. Obviously, it's really important to look at your surgeries, because they will have a direct impact on whether you can grow or you lose items in your business. The last piece down here is we're looking at services. So this is our latest month's claims. So I did 25, the local area average was 53, the industry average was 46. My potential target for the month was actually 160. So I only did 15% of my target. So if that's me as a branch, I'm looking at this going, well, my local area is doing 57.2. So that means if my branch is saying, I never get people to do NMS on, it's unlikely if the rest of your local area average is at 52%. Or 57%. The industry is at 59%. So we can see, like, over the last 2 years, we went from about a 28% penetration on NMS right up to nearly 60%, which is really, really good. It shows that the whole industry is moving to the way that the NHS want you to think it's service-driven, service first. This is the NMS that was claimed since April. And then we have down here what the missed opportunity was. So we know what the value of each NMS was, and we look at the missed opportunity and we say, well, that was £3,590 in the month of November. I lost £3,500 because I didn't do the number of NMS. Over here, we've got our pharmacy first consultations. So we've gotten the number of minor ailments I did. Obviously, I'm much higher than the local average in the industry in terms of my minor ailments. Urgent supply, above average as well. My CP consultations, above average. So this particular branch, as just a demo branch, was doing really well with that pharmacy first consultation. What I will say with the pharmacy first is, the pharmacy first is what I would term a push service. It's up to somebody else to send that to you. You haven't got a huge amount of control of it. But when you look at the other services, your hypertension that we've got down here, and your contraception, they're your pull services. You have the data within your PMR to be able to control and get patients for these services. So I can see here my contraception and my discharge medicines. Discharge medicines, again, a bit like the pharmacy first consultations, you don't really have a lot of control over them. They come at you. So contraception consultations, I did 3 in the month of November. The local average is 23. So, there's definitely people out there that I can do the service on. The year-to-date contraception services, I have only done 3, so I'm very new at it. Over here again, we've got our blood pressure monitoring. So last month I did 24. Year-to-date I did 321. And I did 2 ABPMs and 21. And then again, compared to the local average. So that is your front page. It tells you quite a lot of data. You could stop there if you were a really busy person. Just leave it at that, move on. I've got some information. If you want to look at it in more detail, then we're looking at who are your competing pharmacies. So this is your local area. I'm number 2 in my local area here. These are my other pharmacies that are competing against me in that local area. And here's the growth or decline of those pharmacies. We're looking at the last week nominations in here for each of those branches. The last week's growth on the previous month, and then the last 3 months growth on the last week's growth on the last 3 months. That again gives us a lot more detail to see, you know, if there's somebody out there whose nominations are growing much higher than mine, is it something I need to look at? Where is that? Why is that happening? Am I losing nominations, but someone else is doing something a little bit out of whack with what they should be doing? We've got some industry trends here as well. So I'm looking at, this is my average items here, this top number here. The red one is the industry average. The purple one is the ICB items. So we're now regionalizing and bringing in the ICB as well. And then the orange one is your average neighbours items, so your local area average. And then the same with our nominations. We're trending each of those benchmarks against each other. Again, gives you good insights to see, does your pharmacy follow the trends of the industry, the local area, or your neighbours? So then we're switching over to look at the surgeries. So where are your items coming from? So I can see here, so my top surgery is Grove House Surgery. I do 65,000 of my items through that surgery each month, sorry, in a rolling year. That's 35% of my items. So I get 35% of my items from that surgery. They send me 66% of theirs. Okay, so it's good to see how much you make of their volume. It gives you a good negotiation if you want to go in and talk to them about doing different things, about supports both ways. The more share you have of their surgery, the more likely they are to discuss these things with you. You've got your latest month's growth and your 6 months growth within each of those surgeries. And then we look at the surgeries by themselves to see what their growth is. So although I'm growing my items up here by 0.1% in that Grove House surgery, that surgery is actually down 2.2%. Okay, so the fact that I'm growing means I'm getting more items than one of my other neighbours, they're losing items. So it's a good way to keep an eye on what's going on. The more decline you see in the surgeries here, the more effect it's going to have on your items long term. So then what we do is we look at the each local practice, and then we look at the top 5 branches that get their items from those to see where is the growth and decline coming from. So we can see that that's us, that's the Boots up there. We've got Evercreech Pharmacy in there, Shepton Mallet, and then we've got some other small ones. And then we can see up here, so the Park Medical is our second surgery, but actually it gives the majority of its items to Shepton Mallet. And then Evercreech has got a higher volume than us as well. It's good to keep an eye on these to ensure that if you are losing items in a surgery, that it isn't because somebody else is, you know, going behind your back to negotiate things with the surgery that's close or important to you. So then once we look at those, we then look at the services. So the first pages we're looking at the top up here, we're looking at NMS and DMS. So we can see again, this is broken down by those local pharmacies. So to see where you sit in terms of the local pharmacy. So that Wells Road Citibank is in 103 NMS last month. Tesco Tucker Street did 105. I only did 25. It's a good way to look at it to make sure that, you know, if they can do it, the likelihood is the patients are there for you to do it too. So this is, again, the missed opportunity for the month. So each branch is calculated in terms of the loss. And then we can look at the year's loss opportunity. The year to date is from April. So we can see that my branch, and that Boots branch, I lost £28,000 worth of revenue because I missed NMS continuously. And then the DMS, as we said, that's a push service. So it's good to keep an eye on that. You can see that Boots is doing a lot more DMS than anyone else, probably because they're probably late opening or something. So then we've got our hypertension, our contraception. So we're looking at our blood pressure checks, our year to date. And then we're looking at the ABPMs to make sure that we're maximizing those as much as we can. And then we're looking at our contraception as well. And then looking at the contraception from April. So it's taking into account more of the national services now and making sure that we're maximizing those to the best of our ability within the area that we're actually functioning in. The next thing we're doing is we're looking at pharmacy first. So we're looking at the clinical consultations in each of the branches. What was that year to date? What was the opportunity cost in terms of the clinical pathways opportunity loss? So that's effectively looking at pharmacies who didn't meet the threshold in terms of that month's threshold to get the £1,000 base fee, and then what they missed out in terms of reaching that target. So we can see that that branch there, opportunity cost was £1,135, and that was the £1,000 because they didn't meet the threshold, and the difference between the threshold and what they actually achieved. And we got our year-to-date opportunity cost as well. So every time I miss a threshold, I lost £1,000, and that is all added in here as well. So then at the bottom piece here, we're looking at is our flu. So what we've done here with the flu is obviously it's a seasonal thing, but what we're tracking here in the flu is the difference between what the local pharmacies are doing in your area and what the local surgeries are doing in the area. So if you've got a surgery who's doing thousands, say this one here, Chad surgery, 3,900, is that a potential open door to say, do you need a hand to do some of those flu? Are you backlogged? They probably don't, but you just never know. Ashley's laughing at me there, I know. But yeah, so those are the type of things that it raises a question in your head, I suppose, as to what could I do better if there is that amount of. So we did an average of 300 flu jabs to November in the pharmacies, but the surgeries did 1,800. Now they're supposed to, I do get that. The last page, we just gave you an extra page here to make comments and notes on, so you can refer back to it as you look at it, give you a chance to do it. And then the very last page here is just, I'm talking to you here and I'm going through it. And as Ashley and Nick said, it can be quite overwhelming. And what did she say that was? We've created a sheet, an explanation page here at the bottom that tells you everything that's going on in that report. So that, as a starting point, is your now free with your membership report. And as I said, will be starting to be rolled out from the next set of data that arrives within your pharmacies.
Thanks,
Okay.
Thanks, Adele. So just we've had a couple of questions come in and I've answered them by typing those messages. But one of them was to ask that question when the reports become available. So I can answer that. So for England, they tend to be later in the month now. Data is released from the NHS England BSA later part of the month. For instance, last month it was around about the 26th of January when that data became available. So, we try and get those reports to you as soon as we can, as soon as that data is available. So, for instance, this month, we've been in the process of sending that data now. But in all likelihood, the new reports, which would be inclusive as part of your membership, this local market insight report, which Adele's just taken you through, will be from the end of March. Expect to see those landing in your inbox. And they come in, they're distributed via email in PDF format for you to be able to review and share. But I will stop talking now and hand you back to Adele because she's got some great news to share with you. We've been working, as I said, right for a long time. It appears on a solution which bridges the gap between those larger accounts, larger businesses out there who've got access to some rich data, and we've been working with RWA Pharmacy to be able to bring that to life for single contractors, smaller businesses, to bridge that gap. But I'll shut up now and I'll hand over to Adele.
Okay. Thanks. Okay, so this new solution that we've put together for independents and small groups, it's allowing you guys to see more operational insights within your branches. It's not real time, but it's effectively live. It's yesterday's data today. So the system is built by us connecting directly to the PMR. And we're connected to all the PMRs with the exception of RxWeb. We have integrations with each of them. We get an overnight feed from each of those PMR providers into our system, and we load it up and allow you to see basically on a summary level what's going on in your pharmacy every day, every week, and every month. We have other data sources that come in here to enhance the data. So we bring in the drug tariff. So the drug tariff comes in every week. It is enhanced every day with any concessions that are released as the month goes on. We then take the discount from the NHS and recalculate the reimbursement for each of your medicines, and then in fact your whole claim to say, well, this is the amount of money that this claim is actually worth for you. So when I touched on the reimbursement within the public report, within the local insights, it's based on an average item value across the whole industry. This is actually based on your dispensing, your product, your generics, your brand, and the reimbursement that you're getting on those. And then when the month is done, within the month, we look at everything that's labeled, and we look at all the operational complications around labeling before things are claimed. So, timing around making sure the workflows work very well, that you're dispense notifying in the proper time frame, that you're claiming within the proper time frame, that you're endorsing your prescriptions correctly, watching the spine within your branch to see, are you falling behind at any point? And just making you aware of those in real time so that you can address them before the claim goes in. So there's reports that look at things that operationally every week. Then we have reports that when the claim window closes, we flip everything to be claimed. So we calculate your reimbursement based on what was actually claimed. And then we look at all the anomalies and exceptions around that month within the system. The screen that I'm showing at the moment is basically what our portal looks like. So there's two options within this solution. There is a push option, which effectively we create the reports for you. We have a suite of reports which encompass all of these different areas, and we send them direct to you, to your PDF in your email. You open them on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, and you see everything that's going on. Or there is a separate option where you have access to this portal in the solution, and you can actually access it and do lower levels of information and focus on different KPIs or individually. Those are the two options for you. My recommendation probably is to start with getting the suite reports sent to you so that you can get a feel for how things work, and then know whether or not you might need a lower level of information. Okay, so I'm going to go through some of those dashboards now just to show you what they look like, what's in them. Now, as Nick and Ashley said, there's quite a lot of data here. Okay, so what we do on our side is we try and summarize as much as possible going on in your business in one report, and then and identify the exceptions around those so that you know where to go to look at things. You can see my NMS is down this month. I need to focus on that area this month. I've lost some fees because I didn't endorse my prescriptions correctly last month. I need to focus on that area. But by us giving you a big picture of what's going on, you can selectively pick what you need to look at. So I'm going to flip over and look at some of those reports now. So I'm going to start with the monthly one, which is the whole summary level of what's going on. And then I'm going to look at the weekly one to give you the lower level of these are your operational exceptions that need to be dealt with now, your script level information. So this is your monthly report. Okay, so within the monthly report, we create a series of benchmarking in here too. So you know exactly where you sit against your peers. So you can say that this purple line here is always going to be you. So the purple line here is how I did in January. So I can see I did 16,400 items in January. This is my trend for the last 12 months. I was down 2.2% in January. I did 28 private items in January. The gray line then here is the industry average. So the industry average is based on the public data, so it'll always be a couple of months behind. We then look at the NPA average as well. So this is our independent solution average. So anybody who is involved in this independent solution, we benchmark all of them against each other. So that's your orange line here. So you can see how you fare against the other independents. And then the purple line is what we call our RWA average. So we've about almost 70 groups using this solution. And we bench those anonymously each month at the end of the month. And we put that benchmark in there as well. So it allows you to see a number of different benchmarks to see what's going on. We're then looking at patients. Obviously, within your public data, you don't get to see what patients looks like. So we've got our patient trend, whether we're up or down our patients, how many private patients we're actually looking at, and then an NPA and RWA average for your patients too. The bottom here, we've got our main service, which is our NMS at the moment, our main revenue to see what we completed, what our target was, how much did we achieve, what the missed opportunity value was. Over this side, we've got reimbursement. So this is what I said before. So we're using our drug tariff and our calculations to calculate reimbursement to give you what your drug value looks like. We've got your item fees added in here. So we're able to look and see what your basic item fees are, what your expensive item fees are, what your specials are, and so on, and add those all in. And then we add in the value of your services, giving you a net payable amount for January. Now, there'll be some things that we can't see, you know, some local services and things like that that won't add into this, but they'll be, I think, small enough. We've got our nomination growths. So we're looking at the growth each month across that trended month. Then we're looking down here at our electronic prescriptions. So this is live data. £91 of prescriptions expired in whatever month this was, January. And we can see that you know, that's prescriptions that were dispense notified and never claimed. There's a trend here of how much prescriptions actually expired in the last 6 months. We only have data for the last 4 with these guys, so that's why we're looking at this. It's quite small, nothing that I'd be, you know, writing home about or having a canary about, but we do see up to £1,000 loss a month in branches. So it's something that you do need to consider. Then we've got down here, what's our risk for the next month? So we've got £179. It's going to expire in the next 7 days if it's not looked at. In 18 to 15, we've got 352, and then 16 to 30, we've got 1,000. So that's our front page, gives us a bit of a summary. Second page then looks at our items. So up here, we've got our headlines, our last month claimed items, the growth year on year, how many of those were exempt items, how many non-exempt, how many privates, what's the rolling year claim, and what does that growth look like? We then break down the items by the categories. So each of the drug tariff categories to see what kind of items you're doing in each of the categories. And then we break down the reimbursement as well. So break down the reimbursement for each of the categories, the lines within it, the drug costs, the discount, the fees, estimated charges, your predicted GIC, which is your gross ingredient cost, your NIC, your net ingredient cost, and then your predicted AIV. So your AIV is your drug cost plus your fees. GIC is your drug cost minus the discount, and the gross obviously is the whole lot. We're then looking at patients. I'm trying to drill down, and I'm actually so the patients then we've got, because we're looking at your PMR data, there's so much information in relation to patients here. Patients profiling for so many different things, whether it's compliance on medicines, whether it's overdue patients, whether it's patients suitable for services. There's so much data around the patients, you know, that I think that pharmacy is one of the richest data sources around whether people are actually being treated properly for their medicine, for their conditions. You know, the doctor can say, I prescribed it, but only the pharmacy will know actually if they got it, they took it. And because if it's a repeat one, they'll know they're not taking it if they're not coming back regularly. So, you know, you can figure out the patient compliance too. So we can see here the growth of our patients. Obviously, a decline in patients is going to have a direct impact on our items. The number of items per patient, how many new patients we've got. New patients is actually really important, because when we look at the nominations, you know, we can see that month on month we were down 5 nominations in our branch, but actually we had 163 new patients, which means that our overall net of patients actually was the loss was a lot higher of patients that were previously our patients that have now moved somewhere else. We've got our number of deliveries, so we've got 4% delivery, number of items per delivery. If your number of items per delivery is kind of going to go about 7 or 8 per patient, you might find that you're losing margin or not obtaining any margin for patients that you're actually delivering to. And then you've got your ERD. So we've got patients here. So these are our new patients. Some of the patients, see the purple ones, we've nominated them as a new patient have come in. The grey ones, we actually haven't nominated these patients. And then over here, we've got new exempt patients that are suitable for repeat. We've got down here, we've got patients who are suitable for nominating. We've got patients who are suitable, who are overdue. As part of our calculations within our system, we use the dispensing of the patient to create a patient cycle. We use that patient cycle in lots of different places within the system. One is to identify patients that are overdue, so may have potentially moved their nomination somewhere else. The second one we use the cycle in is to say when patients are due to come back in so that you can schedule them in for different services. In here, we've got more operation stuff. So we're looking at things around our prescriptions. Here we've got the number of returned prescriptions we did this month. Returning prescriptions, in a lot of cases, it's the patient's choice. You know, they've moved their nomination, you need to return it. But are you returning prescriptions because you don't want to get the product because it's below the drug tariff? Or, you know, these kind of areas, you know, the returning patients has effect on your nominations. Non-dispense items. Again, you've got a factor in that where it'll be the patients sometimes will decide it, and sometimes it'll be that you guys just can't get it. How many outstanding emergencies have we got? There should be another circle up here for withdrawn prescriptions. This is kind of looking at it from potentially a fraud perspective, where the prescription has actually been dispense notified and then withdrawn. The dispense notification had been withdrawn. We created this around an area where we had some not so honest people dispensing the medicine, sending the dispense notification, giving the medicine to the patient, and then withdrawing the dispense notification, downloading the prescription in a different pharmacy and claiming it there. So you can see that these kind of things, I know it does happen. It's scary, but it does. Then we've got our aging prescriptions. So based on the prescription start date of every prescription, we age them into a bucket and we say, this is your risk in terms of your prescriptions that need to be claimed. Down here, we've got our owings. So we're looking at the original owing count, the outstanding owing count. When this goes up properly, when we've got more than, 20 or 30 branches in here, we'll then create an owing benchmark as well across the estate. Over here, we've got our workload indicator. So the workload indicator, kind of touched on it earlier, looks at the amount of time it takes you to label a prescription from the time that it appears on the spines, from the prescription start date to the time that it ends up in the labeling process. If it's 0 in here, it means that's being done within 24 hours. If it's 1, it means that it's actually taking longer than 24 hours to actually take the prescription down from the spine into the labeling process. We might be a little bit behind. If it goes up to 2 days, it's definitely a concern. In this workload indicator, we're excluding MDS and repeats because they can corrupt that kind of number. So you're looking at genuine EPS prescriptions. And then we're looking over here at the average labeled items by time frame across a week, just to see, what are the busy times? When can I afford maybe to reduce the number of people I've got in the pharmacy? The next page then is looking at our NMS. So we're looking at our engaged, interventions overdue, declined, expired, what missed opportunity we've got, and then, what our target is. We look at flu when we got the farm outcomes in, and then we're looking at the moment at the paid data services for pharmacy first, hypertension and contraception. That's just because we don't have farm outcomes in here yet. Once we have farm outcomes in, it'll become the real one. And then the last page then here is about your financials. So effectively what we're doing is we're rolling up the financials every month. as I said earlier, we move the data along depending on what stage the prescription is at. So within the month, we're looking at labeled. After the month, we're looking at claimed. Once we get paid, we're looking at the paid data. So once we get the paid data in, the FP34s, the e-schedules, the PPDs, we then roll this back up, and this is all based on what you actually got paid. So your year-on-year accounts for your business are looking at real data, so year on year against the actual paid NHS data. We have some private items, agency, private flu and PGDs, private sales, and we add those all into your company total, and then we look at the year on year over. And that's a rolling 12 months. So it rolls every month. The latest month is the one at the top, and then it rolls backwards. We've got your patient count and the year on year patient count in there. So that is the monthly report. There's a lot in there. I do know that. I don't know there's a lot in it. But what I was saying is when you get a chance to look through it, you can kind of figure what's important to me. Where are the areas that I need to focus on? When we then look at the weekly report, we want to focus on areas that we need to take action on. The weekly report is an action-driven report. You need to do this with this script this week. So this front page is a summary again. The items, look at the items I did last week. What is that in terms of growth last week, month to date, year on year? What did the patient looks like? What kind of data have I got in my PMR in relation to my patients? So I had 8,000 patients last month, 2,000 I don't have a contact number for. So, you know, it's going to be more difficult to do a service for a patient you don't have contacts for. So there's 7 of them with no NHS number, 95% of them are nominated. In my new patients for last week, I had 513 new patients, 374 I didn't get a contact number for, 202 I didn't nominate. The average item count is 2.1 and the average script value is 23.7. This is, you know, fairly nominal data. It's based on our demo system, so it's not really live, but it is real data. Again, here we're looking at our prescriptions. So these are our EPS, standard EPS that expire in your 180 days, your CDs that expire within your 28 days, and then your ERDs, which have your 12 months and once the first one is dispensed. Then in the week, we're looking at the workload indicator. So this week, I had 1 day, I had 2 days to dispense notification, and then over here, I've got my owings. The next page is then, this is the prescription lists that needs to be claimed in the next 7 days. So I've got all of these prescriptions here. Some of them have got owings on them, which is a good reason why they're still sitting there. But these prescriptions most of them are exempt prescriptions and haven't been claimed yet. They're going to expire in the next 7 days. So in some cases, this could be admin. It could be that these prescriptions have been taken off the shelf, but they've never been returned to the spine. But in most cases, in a lot of cases, they actually could be still sitting on the shelf or do need to be claimed or missed. So the first one looks at the standard EPS. The second one looks at CDs and ERDs. The third one then looks at expensive items and specials. So what we're doing here was we're identifying the expensive items that need to be claimed. So they were dispense notified in the last 180 days, but they're not claimed yet. Anything that's highlighted in orange needs an endorsement. Doesn't have an expensive item endorsement in it yet. Now, bear in mind, this is test data. Most expensive items are endorsed automatically. The only factor you have in those would be generally if it's on concession. The concession has pushed it over £100. That doesn't auto endorse in the PMR. They're ones you need to keep an eye on, which is why we highlight them in orange. Down here again, we've got our specials. So these are the specials that were labeled in the last 180 days and they haven't been claimed yet. These are ones that we need to look at. We've got some dispensing exceptions. Here's our owings. Here's our outstanding emergency prescriptions. Here's our unclaimed HRT prescriptions. So these prescriptions need to get sent back to the surgery to be split, or else I'm going to get exemption charges on them. We're looking at our nominations. We're looking at the trend of nominations, the spine count, the active nominations, the new patients, potential nominations. And then what we're doing down here is we're comparing the local area average again. So when you remember back to the local insights report, we're looking at the nominations there. But again, you're only getting that once a month. This is every week, so you can look very quickly to see if anybody is stealing your dinner. Then we're looking at patients. So these patients are suitable for nominating, but they're not nominated yet. These patients were new in last week. These patients are overdue. The first thing we do when we look at an overdue patient is we rank the patient based on the risk factors. So if the patient had a prescription returned in the last 3 months, we rank them and risk them higher, so they'll appear on the report higher for you. So these patients are ones that you'd be checking the spine to see if they're nominated to you. If they're not nominated to you, then you've got a patient care call or whatever goes alongside that. The next page is about your NMS. Here's our target. What we're doing here again is giving you actions. These are the patients that need their interventions due this week. These ones are overdue, so they need to be done very soon. These ones here are follow-ups that are overdue. They need to be done fairly soon. So it's giving you a hit list of a job that you need to do this week. So it's all action orientated. Other services. So here we're looking at, I remember I spoke earlier about creating a patient cycle to say when patients are due. So what we're doing here is we're basically saying these patients are suitable for hypertension. They've been into your pharmacy twice in the last 6 months. They are nominated, but they're also due in the next 7 days. These are patients that you ring up and go, you're in for your prescription the next 7 days. Do you want a hypertension blood pressure check while you're here? We're doing the same for contraception. We're looking at patients who are nominated, suitable for the contraception service, and due in the next 7 days. We also include appliance use reviews. Now, not everybody does those, but they're there also as well. So that's your weekly report. And as I said, it's action orientated. And I'm a bit concerned I'm running out of time here. So I'm going to run really quickly into the last 2 reports here. So the second last report is basically your prediction for your NHS reimbursement. So we look at the predicted amount, all the drug costs, all the broken down NMS, and basically say, look, you're going to get paid £330,000 in December. We then break it all down once the data comes in, break down the charges. So if you're doing this on a monthly data on your FP34s, we're trending everything by month to ensure that you get the best of detail and you know exactly what you're looking for. So you can see all the paid services, and then you can see the category breakdown as to what you've been paid in what drug tariff category. The last one that I want to show you today, and I know that there is many more here. We've got daily reports that we send out every day. We've got other different reports around different areas that we're not focusing on today because I know I've only got an hour, and we want to do some Q&A. This is the drug tariff risk report. So we get sight of the drug tariff around about the 26th of each month. And that then allows us to tell our customers that this is the risk that's coming down the track to prescriptions that you've already labeled. So we can see that, in the next month, there's 105 products that are going down in price. With those products, I've got 501 packs that I have dispensed, but I haven't claimed yet. This is the cost that's going to affect me if I don't claim those before the drug tariff changes at the end of the month. So it's focusing you in terms of what you need to do. This is the number of products increasing. This is the number of products that are moving across categories. Used to be too important, but now it's really important because of the discount. The discount effect of the category moving is really important. We can see then these are the products that are going down in price. These are the products that are decreasing. These are products that are going up in price. These are the reimbursement mix. And then this is the category movement. Now, the last page that we have here that I haven't got on here is effectively, these are the prescriptions that you've got. So at script level, we'll say these are the prescriptions that are affected by this. These are the ones that you need to claim. Now, they may be ones that you only dispense this month, and you might want to ring the patient to see, can they come in and collect it so that you can get it in the claim. So that's the 4 or 5 main reports within the new solution for the independent pharmacy in association with the MPA. As I said, I'm only touching on some of them. There's a lot more detail within this platform itself. But we'll do obviously full implementation and training, and full calls on anybody who's interested in having a look at it further. So I
That's
think that's it from me. And I got in before 8 o'clock.
that's brilliant, Adele. Thank you very much for that insight into that solution, and I think it's been really helpful to bring it to life this evening. Ashley, I don't know whether you wanted to say a couple of words, because I know you've been looking at that solution and beta testing it.
All I can say is that as a sector, we are absolutely blessed to have such granularity of data that other sectors would just be amazed at. So it always amazes me that we are very frustrated in terms of the things out of our control, like contract negotiations and all the pressures that we're under as a business. And yet what Adele has clearly shown is that there are tools out there available that can find you revenue pretty quickly, that can help you survive, and dare I use the word thrive, but to be a thriving business. And some of the things like the overdue patients and the nominations, just to give a quick key, is we used to check on our regular patients that we'd done for a number of months or years that hadn't been in within 3 or 4 months, and I'd make a list and we'd pick up the phone. And what we'd found was that we had, by a couple of our pharmacies, a couple of late night 7-day-a-week pharmacies, and they'd gone there and got an antibiotic and been renominated unknowingly, or whether it's unknowingly, I don't know whether it's unknowingly. Quick phone call: did you realise that your nomination's changed? No. And we've got them back. So with the data that you've got, you can keep, retain and grow your patients. Before we open it up for questions, the one thing I would say is, I think Adele has given a whistle-stop tour really quickly. The screen that you saw with the triangle, which has that suite, I got lost in that in a whole afternoon, and I was like one of my teenagers on TikTok, that I was on it and on it, and before I'd noticed it, it was dark outside and like the middle of the night. I was just blown away with what information that I thought I knew. So you've got the option here. You've got a very good bespoke quick report that we talked at the very beginning that will give you a snapshot. But if, like me, you really want to look at data, and I know Adele and her team will train and support anyone that wants to know a bit more data, because for me also, not having the data, it's about what you do with the data, and I think that's equally important. There's no point all of pharmacists having this data if it's just going to sit on your desktop doing nothing. It's got to be used. And I know Adele isn't here just to kind of get us signed up with the data. It's a matter of how to use it and how to make a difference. And I think in the current climate at the moment, every pharmacy out there will have significant income that will help them with national living wage and business rates and NIC and all the pressures that we've got. The answer is almost in that product there at the moment. So I'm sure, Adele, that you can give people logins temporarily to have a look and the snapshots so they can get absorbed into that. So my advice would be to have a look, view it, see it, waste a whole couple of hours, because I think that's what you really do need to kind of really understand the data. And then your mind will go about how you can use that data to change your practice.
That's brilliant, Ashley. Thanks to summarise your thoughts on that. We will be sending out emails to all members just to give you an understanding of the timelines we're working towards. Firstly, to obviously announce the local market insight report being available to all members as part of membership, but also around process for expressions of interest around the business intelligence solution Adele's just taken you through. Now, moving on just to questions and answers, we've got some in the hot topic does seem to be around RX Web and integration. Adele, last one for you, I believe.
Yeah, we have reconnected with RX Web, and the dialogue is open. So the more pharmacy owners who use RxWab that raise the question with them, the quicker it will happen. We're ready to do it. We've been ready to do it for multiple years. So yeah, we have opened the dialogue. We just need to give them a bit of a push to get it done.
There's while we're on the subject of PMR providers, Titan, there's a question around Titan.
Yeah, they're fully integrated.
There we go. And so there are a couple of other questions here. Again, I think these are for Adele. So the first one's around regarding nomination changes when we have a negative which shows patients lost.
Mm-hmm.
How can we zone in and find, I think this is more when you're actually in the report, Adele, find out which patients these are.
So effectively, there isn't a live moved nomination on your PMR. So we don't know exactly who those 5 patients are. We're getting a count of patients every Monday from NHS that says these are the patients these are the count of patients, and we say, well, you had this number last week, you've this number this week, you're either plus or minus. What we've done to work around that is create that overdue patient report, is to say this is the risk patient in terms of ones that potentially have moved their nomination. So the likelihood is the ones that have moved the nomination are in that overdue patient report.
That's great. And actually that concludes all the questions that are there unless something comes in imminently. I'll give it a couple of seconds because we've got 3 minutes left, but we could actually wrap up. If there are no other questions, firstly, I'd like to thank those members that have joined us this evening and given up an hour of their time. And, you know, hopefully we'll get some communications out to you shortly. There is another question just come in. Could PMR system providers automate the retrieval of nominated prescriptions from the NHS spine, reducing the need for users to download them manually? I don't know who to direct that to.
I'm not sure that's a question that we can answer. I think that would have to be directed to your PMR provider. I'm not sure that there is an answer from my side to that, because we get the feed of data from EMIS or from the PMR providers. Now, what I will say is that the nomination on the PMR does update once you access the patient record, but you'd have to open every patient record within your database for it to update automatically. So it doesn't do it. The NHS clamped down on it, said that it couldn't be done. Now there is a workaround that we found within the Titan PMR that we can actually see if a patient has a moved nomination without the patient record updating, generally within about 30 or 60 days. So it's an added enhancement that we have on the Titan PMR, but we don't have it anywhere else.
Thanks, Adele.
Unfortunately.
There are a couple of other questions coming in, but in the interest of time, we're not going to be able to answer those now. But I'd like to thank Nick, Ashley, and yourself, Adele, for joining us this evening, and for all those members that have joined us and remained with us for this entire time. This will be available to view at a later date. It is recorded, so thanks very much for your time, and we'll close there. Have a good day, everybody. Take care.
Thanks for your time. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.